This is every way to use mobs to prank your friends in Minecraft. Now, with one press of this button, we're gonna be able to flip your friend's sheep upside down. Or it sure looks like we're able to. Since really what user Eurobar34 did here was put together a machine that you can tuck inside of a build, so then you can prank your friend and say, hey, see your sheep? Now it's upside down. And as long as they're dyed the same color and you name one of them Dinnerbone and the other one the regular name, it's a pretty funny effect. And personally, I love the idea of tucking one of these mechanisms inside of their sheep farm. And hey, in a lot of ways, redstone's easier to come by than a name tag, so if we're able to do it this way, I wouldn't actually be that mad. When your friend's AFK, it's easy for them to get a little lonely. I mean, after all, they're not even at their keyboards, so no one's keeping them company. So, it's our job to fix that. And that's why I think the idea of leading mobs to your AFK friends is a particularly simple, yet effective prank that you can play. And that way you turn that friendship into more of a friend Noah's Ark. Or if you want to be meaner, you could always bring by some hostile mobs to their location too. I'm not gonna judge, but they might, so only do this if they're a good sport. Or have the respawn point close by. Creepers are silent by design, and while that's usually the death of us, here it's actually going to be their greatest asset. Since by naming a creeper and tucking it underground, it won't make a single sound and you can have it underneath your friend's bed so that they're never able to sleep again. All they're going to see is this message saying that a monster's nearby, but unless they want to go and tear up their whole floor, they're not exactly going to know of its presence. That is, until it's too late. You've probably seen this prank before of putting a chicken above a dispenser so that every time that it lays an egg, it gets shot out into your friend's base. Which, don't get me wrong, is a good prank, but in this case, we're going to do something a lot noisier and a lot more annoying. Since here, the idea is to bury a chicken with a pressure plate connected to a dispenser that'll fire out rockets towards an amethyst block. And that way, we're both creating random sounds for the rockets and random twinkly noises every time that amethyst block gets hit, given a random noise machine that's sure to drive them crazy. It's like the audio equivalent of glitter. It's hard to remove, and it's hard to ignore. Here's a simple way to drive your friends crazy. Since this was their animal pen before we pranked them, and this is their animal pen after. Now you're right, there's not much of a difference, but the difference that is there is gonna be very annoying the more that they notice it. Since what we did was just move their animal pen a few blocks to the right. And if you want to, you can continue to do this over time, until eventually they're wondering why they have to walk all the way over to the other side of their base just to go and feed their animals. Surprising your friend with a wither is already a pretty good prank. Or rather, it's easier to say that it's an effective one. I mean, clearly it gets the job done, but it's not really doing it with any kind of panache. So the better way to do this is to not even be the one who's spawning the wither. Since with the help of dispensers, it's completely possible to build an entire redstone system underneath your friend's base, and then when a certain trigger goes off, whether that be an observer or a pressure plate, or even a pufferfish detector for all that matter, you can sense when your friend's home, summon the wither, and then give them a new house guest for a housewarming party. If anything, the explosion might be a nice way to open up the floor plan. And what I love most about spawning the wither is that that's an event that you can hear trigger across the entire server. So even if you have it summoned further away from your friend's base, they'll still get shocked by that sound. And I think that's pretty effective. If you punch an iron golem, it gets mad at you. That's not really a surprise to anyone, it's intentional game design. But what might be surprising to know is that iron golems aren't particularly good at discerning which player is which. And you'll see as much if you disconnect from the server fast enough. See, if you and your friend are raiding a village, then when you punch that iron golem and then disconnect quickly off the server, that iron golem's anger has to go somewhere. And so they'll start actually dishing it out on the friend who's standing next to you. And while it's unfortunate that you have to log off the server to do this, meaning that you're not able to see it happen in real time, I think being able to log back on and seeing your friend as a pile of items more than conveys what needed to happen. It's a solid 2-panel story. You don't have to know what happened between point A and B. As long as you got to the destination, it's good enough for me. Snow golems can be a very useful mob, but they're also very annoying to clean up after. So if you get all the snow from a snow golem machine like this one, we can then use that to make a bunch of other snow golem friends and then lead them around your friend's base, leaving a whole bunch of snow to clean up. And folks, there's really no simple way to do this. You could use a shovel, but you use one too fast and then you're breaking other blocks around it. Or if you try to use water to do the job, then you might break torches and things. For how simple of a prank it is, it's not a simple one to clean up after. So maybe use this against your meaner friends. When you look up into the skies, it's hard to tell what this is. And really, you're not gonna have an idea until it lands on the ground and you see that there are hundreds of Ravagers spread out across your base. And that was the idea behind this prank on the Hermitcraft server. And I think it's so perfect that you should try it in your worlds too. Now granted, getting this many Ravagers is gonna be a tough feat. And after all, we're not able to breed them. But with the help of how many efficient raid farms there are out there, you really could automate this process. And for the reaction that you're able to get from it, that's pretty spectacular. I mean, the Hermits are some of the most experienced prank masters that there are, and even they were shocked by this. It's really going the extra mile and then some. And plus, even in full gear, fighting this many Ravagers isn't an easy feat either. So it could be deadly too if that's what you're hoping for. At the very least, it's a tough prank to clean up after. Here's why putting this villager inside a boat ruined my friendship. Since by taking all of my friends' villagers out of their trading hall and simply tucking a few of them into the same boat, then I've now made it very annoying to try and separate them from that boat without raising up their trades. Really, you have to turn on hitboxes just to get the right idea here. It's not easy to break boats, and especially when there's two of them in the same one, you want to make sure that you can break it without hitting them and then all of a sudden jacking up your prices. You can't even easily move it if you're not able to get in the boat. Very annoying. Trampling your friend's crops is a mean thing to do. I don't think I'm gonna get any pushback from that. But what's even more annoying is when mobs do it and you can't even tell them why they're wrong. So if you want to trample your friend's crops, but not be the person responsible for it, then by leading a bunch of passive mobs over to your friend's farm and having them do the job like that way you're able to destroy their wheat and carrots, while still technically not being the one who did it. You're more of a getaway driver than the perpetrator. And thankfully, most servers don't come with an actual legal system, so I think you'll be fine. Especially if they have a mob farm nearby to their actual farm, you could just break down a couple of fence blocks and have the mobs go do the trick that way, letting our pigs get their hooves dirty while our hands stay squeaky clean. If your friends happen to build a giant statue of a different mob, usually to denote a mob farm of sorts, then that's a giant immobile target that's just begging to be pranked. And hey, without the AI, they're going to be a lot more cooperative too, meaning that we can take after this user and basically give them an entire makeover. And folks, the possibilities are endless here. You can give them different silly clothing, a different silly hat, the whole works. It's really up to you to what you want to do. But I will say, the bigger that you go, the funnier that it's going to be. Just make sure that's not too close next to their base where they're going to notice you doing it. Otherwise, you're going to have to burn the midnight oil and put in some late hours to make sure that you're doing this while they're asleep. But when you do, the results can be pretty hilarious. If you're particularly good at getting on your friend's nerves, then it's easy to get them to hit you. I don't know, maybe you deserved it. But that one little punch is going to be their biggest mistake, since that's when you go over to the army of wolves that you prepped earlier and use that to literally unleash a lot of pain onto your friends. And while Green suggests setting this up by having to do a challenge where they have to hit you 4 times, if I'm really being honest, I've never found it that difficult to get my friends to hit me, but maybe that says more about me than it does about the concept. Either way, as long as they're hitting you and you can get the wolves angry, then that's really all you need. When I say future, what do you think about? Flying cars, robots, whether you can marry robots? But let me tell you folks, the future is juice, or specifically the juice of the future, Loom. Now, I love orange juice, but I can't drink it every day, and that's why I love Loom. It's a juice water beverage. And that means you get to keep all the taste of your favorite juices without taking all the sugar and calories that come with other brands. And all of your favorite flavors are here too. We got orange, grape, apple, and fruit punch. My favorite is the Aurora Orange, and you'll have to let me know which one you like best too. So if you're looking for a fun drink to enjoy while watching these videos, then go to the link in the description or scan my QR code on screen to use code SKIP at checkout and get 15% off your first purchase. While horse riding isn't exactly the most popular way of getting around in Minecraft, getting the proper horse does take a lot of work. And so if your friend's bragging about how they've bred up this perfectly fast and high jumping horse, then it's time we take them down a peg and turn their star steed into a dud stud. And as long as it has the same patterns, then you can give it a name tag just the same. And so when you swap it in and they try to ride it, they're gonna be pretty surprised as to why it's not moving nearly as fast anymore. And what's better yet is that you might have just found yourself a pretty sweet horse too, making it even funnier to ride past your friends and show off just how good yours is compared to their much worse horse. Here's how I infested my friend's house entirely with silverfish. Since while it would be a pain to move silverfish over to this area, if you use a silk touch axe to break the blocks down in a stronghold, then that'll actually keep the silverfish inside of their stone egg, letting us pick it up, not get the silverfish mad at us, and then replace the blocks inside your friend's base to this new pallet. I mean, it looks nice, it's just not gonna feel nice when they need to go change out their blocks. Slimes are a very annoying mob, and it's not necessarily because they're the deadliest. I mean, the smallest ones can't even kill you, but when you get so many of them, when they're all hopping around, it makes a very unpleasant sound. And so if you've got a slime farm, you could take these slimes, break them down into their smaller counterparts, and then tuck them with name tags inside of your friend's base just to make it a little hard for them to sleep. And if you want to make it even worse, just connect it up with tunnels so that the slimes are able to move around freely throughout the base. Then with how many of them that there are, it's going to be really hard to track down. Here's how to use the Jeb name tag for an evil prank. Since while it's a cool Easter egg, it's not so cool when you need to go and shear the wool off the sheep and you don't know what color the wool's going to be. And despite what some YouTubers might try to tell you, no, it doesn't give you rainbow wool. It's going to be the color that it was before you named them. them. So if your friend's got their sheep farm color-coded, they'll be just fine. But if there's someone who just has all of it flowing around in the same pen, it's gonna be very tough to tell which one's which. But hey, at least they'll know their names now. It'll be easy to remember when they all have the same one. Whatever you do, do not go down into this bubble column, since the sneaky truth about it is that once you go down and grab those items, that bubble column's not gonna let you leave, and those pufferfish are definitely gonna give you a lot of damage, since we've tucked them away using this trapdoor here. And what I love about this is that it's basically the other version of the honey block and lava cauldron trick that we've shown off in the past. But just because we switched out lava for water does not make this any less deadly. And because you can put in a whole bunch of pufferfish and have them all sting at the same time, the results can get out of hand quick. As you can see, there's no mobs to be seen, or at least that's what we want you to think. Since if you can sneakily give your friend this texture pack that makes mobs invisible, it can get very confusing to tell what's going on in your world. And while it might be a bit more obvious if you give them a pack like this where every mob is invisible, if you could find a way to make only certain mobs invisible, I think creepers are what we all have in mind, then it won't be noticeable at first, but very quickly it's gonna be evident what you made invisible when they blow up. What you see as a tree is actually the most annoying prank I could have played on my friend. Let me explain. So for starters, what we're going to want to do is hollow out the inside trunk of the tree and then tuck in a mob right at the top of the logs so that when your friend goes to cut it all down, they're instead going to get this mob dropping down into their face. And folks, the range of how mean you want to be about this is really up to you. You can make it a more humorous mob, just like a passive one, a zombie if you want them to get hurt but not exactly die, and a creeper dive bomb if you want to make sure that's the last tree they're ever cutting down. And our prank isn't just evil for the logs of the tree, but also for the leaves. We're able to waterlog our leaves in such a way where if you put these two leaves on top of each other, we can use a bucket of water that's filled with a fish so that the fish swims up into the top of the leaves. And now we've essentially got a fish tank inside of our leaves. And if you want to, you could fill up your entire friend's tree using just these fish leaves. That way they're gonna wonder why it's not despawning, and when they break the leaves, they're gonna be more surprised as to why a fish is flopping on their face. This house doesn't look that interesting, but it's actually haunted. Since if you were to hollow out your friend's walls and make sure not to torch up behind them, you can have it so that a whole bunch of zombies, skeletons, and all kinds of other mobs are spawning inside of your friend's base, which already would be a nightmare to go and clean up. But if you also want to add in a ghost to the equation, then by taking a charged creeper and making it invisible with potions, then you'll make sure that next time they give the Ghostbusters a ring before they check out their house. We all have that one friend who has a lot of dogs and it's hard to keep track of which one's which. And so while they might have given each one of them a different name and collar, a great prank is just going through and switching all of your friends' names with a new name tag. They don't even have to be tamed to us to do this. And it's an easy enough prank to undo if they need to. It's not like the name raider in Pokemon where they're not going to let them change back the name after a while. And this is one where I think if you're more subtle, it's even funnier. Like maybe adding in an accent mark or subtle little things to your cat's name, where they don't notice it at first until it's gotten completely out of hand. Or paw in this case. Stealing your friend's villagers and hiding them away is a good start, but to make that prank even more sinister, then we should also hide away a few parrots too, since these will mimic the sounds of the villagers so that when they're trying to go and excavate their house to find them, they might go a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is all I'm saying. Get a whole bunch of wardens stocked up, and then splash them down with the invisibility potion, which sure is limited, but if you're able to then get your friend within range, they're going to be absolutely shocked when they get hit by that darkness effect. And then even more so that when their vision's limited, they're not even going to be able to see any of the wardens that are coming to attack them. Sure, having subtitles on might help, but it's hard enough to survive the warden on hard difficulties anyway. Okay, so you've probably heard of the Headless Horseman, but what about the Bodiless Steve? See, after placing down some path blocks, we can throw a pig inside a minecart, hop on, and ride into the floor like so, with only our head to poke out of the top of the path, which can either startle your friends or lend to the weirdest game of soccer yet. And whichever option you choose, just make sure not to dismount the pig while you're down there. Otherwise, you'll go from an awkward situation into something a lot more uncomfortable. Here's how to flip your friend's world completely upside down, literally. We could prank your friends so that when they go back to visit their animal pen, it's completely on the roof. And honestly, I think this looks good enough to just actually have it be the animal pen. It just might be a little tough to breed the new ones. But overall, a harmless prank, and it's good for a laugh. Picture this. It's the start of a new world. We're raiding a village with a friend. They go to kill the iron golem for some early ingots, but as they build 3 blocks tall to escape, we accidentally place a brick right here so that the golem can hit them. They suffer the consequences, and now we can grab the iron instead. Creeper holes are like laundry. If you have a little bit to do, then it's not a big problem. But let too much of it stack up, and all of a sudden you've got this huge undertaking to go. And so to prevent that from happening, and fill your pockets while you're doing it, you can charge players on the servers a tax for repairing their creeper holes. And when you do this, they really can't blame you for anything that you're doing. I mean, after all, they could have just not had the creeper explode in the first place, but if they then forget to fill it in themselves, then, in my opinion, they should be paying a little something. If not their time, then their assets. And hopefully they'll learn a lesson going forward. And we can all have a much prettier server going as well. Killing your friend's pet is an evil prank. That's why we're not going to be the ones to do it. Rather, they will be. Since with a trap like this, we're giving our friend the choice to choose which lever they need to pull to save their pet. So which of these levers do you think is the one that's going to be able to save their pet? Yeah, I thought that one too. But not so much. Since if you really want to be cruel, you could set this up also as a fake system where regardless of which lever they pull, their pet's gonna meet the same fate, to put it lightly. And to be extra cruel, you could also have one of the levers just drop TNT on top of them, so at least they won't be losing their pet, they'll both be going to the same spot. It's just a little further away from here than they thought. Taking a page after Green's book, we're gonna build a surprise creeper hid within your friend's ceiling. The way that we get started on this, by sneaking a creeper up above your friend's base, or really wherever you want to put this, and then once you've got the creeper tucked into the right position, once your friend comes and flips down the trapdoor to see what you might have tucked above, they're gonna quickly regret that choice. But because of a little thing called gravity, there's really no way to put the toothpaste back in the tube in this scenario. The creeper falls, they close the trapdoor again, and they're stuck with an explosive finale. Unless you're using mods, Minecraft doesn't really experiment too much with turrets. I mean, you've got dispensers with arrows, but those are pretty limited in their direction. Really, if you're trying to defend your base from any intruders coming too close, you gotta build a couple of guardian turrets. It only takes one look at these to see just how menacing these things can be. I mean, you step too close and boom, you're targeted on and it's gonna be a world of pain coming your way. Making the guardians from Minecraft way more like the guardians from Zelda, turning it into way more of a Hyrule castle. And personally, I love that kind of thing. First, we're gonna need to get a creeper head, which is easier said than done. Means we have to deal with not one, but two creepers, one of them charged, and use that explosion to get our new head. But once you go through that whole rigmarole and create a noise machine like this tucked away underneath their floorboards. And every time that it sounds off, it'll play the primed creeper sound effect inside of their house, which is more than a little concerning, especially if you use something like observers to make this go off every time that they open a chest or something. They'll think there's a creeper behind them and be greeted by nothing, which seems like it would be a relief, but it's not gonna feel like one when it's happening every single time you open up a chest. If you've played on enough Minecraft servers, then you're definitely aware that some people can be griefers. So if you want to give those annoying players more of a run for their money, you can actually trap an Elder Guardian, and boom, you got your own form of anti-grief. Look, it's not perfect. If they have a milk bucket, they're going to be able to get past it, but if they're not prepared, they're going to have a hard time busting into your base. And hopefully that frustration that they feel will be enough to get them off of your lawn anyway. Especially if you trap the thing in obsidian so they're not able to break through. This makes for a pretty solid way to both annoy and hopefully ward off any greedy players. Spawning the Wither makes for a pretty good prank, but it's also pretty destructive, and you don't want it to go around and then destroy your stuff after it destroys your friends. And here's how to get all that same scare without having to do any of the cleanup that's associated with it. All you have to do is act like you're gonna spawn the Wither in the middle of your friend's house, but just make sure that you're placing the soul sand blocks above any non-air block. That could be something like torches, grass, string, carpet, whatever. As long as it's not air, any of those will keep the Wither from actually spawning. Or you could also place down the 3 skulls of the Wither formation first, and then put in the T-shape underneath it. That'll also stop it from spawning, since the game only checks if the skull is one of the last blocks placed, which should give you just the right amount of scarecrow to be able to scare your friends. And hey, if it doesn't work, you can always just break one of those skulls and build it the right way. That's sure to scare them. If you don't want to be the one holding the netherite axe when you kill your friend, no worries, get a zombie to do it for you. Since a zombie that's holding a sharpest 5 netherite axe is fully capable of one-shotting an unarmored player. And trust me, it's pretty scary to have to deal with one of these. Even if you do have armor, they don't have nearly as much of an attack cooldown. So get too close and the rest is history. 1.15 got a lot of different people excited for the buzzing bee mob. And while I gotta fully admit that they are adorable, they can be used as a tool of evil. Case in point, if you went through the effort of trapping a bunch of bees underneath your friend's floorboards while they're AFK, then when they log back in, not only are they gonna be treated to a horrible sound on the eardrums, but also when they break a hole to go check out, they might just hit one of the bees, and then all of a sudden, the entire swarm is gonna be directed right at them, making it both a terror to listen to and to be on the receiving end of. Building up an animal farm is a lengthy process, and it's an investment that usually pays off. But to keep those dividends from ending up in your neighbor's pockets, then a Vindicator might be your best pick. Now, like this, they aren't as interested in the pigs as they are with us, but add on a Johnny name tag and now they'll chop up just about anything in sight. Meaning, if we place one of these inside the fence and make it invisible, your friend will have no idea how they're losing all their mobs. At least they'll have no idea until they step inside to check it out. And from there, we can successfully steal their stuff and their foodstuffs to make sure you stay on top. Since the maps in Minecraft are able to be one perfectly flat color, you're actually able to create some pretty cool optical illusions. And folks, my favorite one of these yet probably has to be this eye that seemingly follows you wherever you walk. Whether you're off to the left or right, it's still gonna be looking right at you. And while I'm sure you all could get creative on the different ways this inanimate eye spies on your players, one that I'd particularly like to see is building this kind of eye inside of an actual Guardian statue. That way, even if you're not gonna get blasted by their beam effect, it's still gonna be pretty unsettling to have this follow you around. Anyone who's ever played on a server without one player's sleep added in knows just how painful AFK players can be. Because sure enough, they're not sleeping, and after a while that means you can't sleep, causing phantom problems for everyone on the server. But what's so cruel about it is that if they have a roof over their heads, they're not even dealing with the repercussions. So to show your AFK friend just what they're putting you through, why not take a little bit of the roof off and watch as they finally meet the mobs that they introduced you to. And from there, I'll leave it up to you whether you decide to let the phantoms kill them or just teach them a lesson. The best way to pull off something evil is to pretend it's a good deed. I mean, even the Greeks knew that was a good idea. So to use our form of a Trojan horse, we'll need to secure a creeper companion. From there, lead it towards your friend's chest, have it explode, and then, when you offer to help put the items back, simply pinch the ones you'd like to keep. I mean, they'll be caught in such a frenzy that they likely won't notice a few items gone missing, especially if the creeper happened to explode a tower of chests like this one. So it's a win-win. We seem like a good friend, all the while we pull off our heist. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?